Hello and welcome to the African Tech Roundup episode 118. Now this is where we round up the most important tech, digital and innovation highlights from across the African continent. My name is Andile Masugu, and sitting in for Musa Kalenga, who's away on compassionate leave, is good friend of the show, TapSnap founder and CEO Vijay Vijendranath. How are you doing, Vijay?
I'm good. Great to be back.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. It's been too long. We're happy to call you a regular around here because you tend to set it off when you're around.
Yeah, I think 3 is the magic number, isn't it?
Three tends to be the magic number, but no. You get it lit. You come here with matches and you leave things blazing, which is a good thing. I mean, we really love having you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Yeah.
For sure. Listen, and look, also in the building is Obakeng, Morapeli, Matlhoko. Did I say that right?
Nah, you killed it.
Did I just butcher that?
Just butchered it.
Obakeng, just tell us your name like properly.
Obakeng Morapeli wa Matlhoko.
Morapeli. Yeah, Morapeli. I read that L like an L.
It's a D.
It's a D.
Yeah.
In Sesotho.
Yeah.
All right. My bad, my brother. Listen, you're the founder of After Robot, a taxi app which hopes to usher in a new paradigm for the South African minibus taxi industry. Oh, yeah, you guys have certainly picked a tough one to grapple with. We're going to be talking about that, among other things. What's interesting is you guys have in common here the fact that you are. I hate to use the term, but it's so commonly used. You both run startups that are the Uber for something, right? Yeah. And that's an interesting thing. Like, I didn't realize that inviting you to be with us today, Vijay, to stand in for Musa, that actually there would be that you'd have this in common with our guest today. But we're going to talk about all this and more. And because I've got 2 guests on the show, instead of one in a regular, what we're going to do is we're going to dispense with formalities. We're going to flip the script. Usually we'd go through a ton of all the most prolific highlights within the context of African tech, emerging tech and innovation. But today I've got too much to talk to you two about for that to happen. So while I do the sponsor bit, I need you guys to think about the 1 or 2 things that are sort of trending in the news arena within tech and innovation on the continent, things that are sort of trending in your life personally, that we can discuss before we head straight into what I'd really like to talk to you guys about. Yeah?
Cool.
So as you think, let's do this. This episode of the African Tech Roundup is brought to you by Europe's preeminent Africa-focused tech event. And I do not say that lightly, folks. I truly believe that if there's one tech event for you to attend in Europe this year, or any year, frankly, it's this one. It's Afrobytes Tech Conference 2018, and it's themed The Rise of the African Tech Industry. Wakanda forever.
You can't see. For those who can't see, I'm doing the Wakanda forever.
Yeah, we're doing the Wakanda vibes. All right, Wakanda forever. Everything goes down in Paris, folks, on June 7th and 8th, 2018. I hope I haven't infringed on some sort of copyright by doing that. But anyway, listen, and once again this year we're really honored to be partnering with Afrobytes to be part of, bringing you the very finest opportunities to connect with an incredible cross-section of actors within Africa's tech and innovation space. Game-changing insights always ensue at Afrobytes Conference. And so this year's event will be hosted at MEDEV, which is France's largest entrepreneur network in France, representing over 750,000 companies of every size across industry, commerce, and services. Yeah, it's safe to say that France is taking African tech and entrepreneurship on the continent, I think, a little seriously, which is nice to see. Head over to afrobytes.com to get a sense of what you missed out on last year and what you dare not miss out on this year. Super early bird bookings are open, and tickets currently cost between 195 and 595 euro. And by the way, it's worth mentioning that we have a secret stash of video content that we co-produced with Afrobytes last year. We cannot wait to unleash on you guys. We've been saving that for, the build-up towards this year's conference. We can't wait to share some of the insights that came out there. Just look out for that. Follow us on social. Do what you need to do. Find us on Twitter at African Roundup. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/African Tech Roundup, or simply head to africantechroundup.com. So, folks, I hope I gave you enough time to think about what sort of trended over the last, few weeks, perhaps the last month or so, that sort of stands out to you, that might be relevant to our audience that is spread across the continent and indeed around the world. What's on your mind, Obakeng?
What's on my mind is, I think, the missed opportunity by transport operators in seeing the message that the customer is telling them. By burning Uber cars and by, just the violence, they're missing a crucial point that it's not the Uber drivers that are messaging them. It's the commuters saying that they want a better service, and the better service needs to be provided, and Uber happens to be the person providing it. So what they actually need to understand is this, that even if you get rid of them, the customer wants a better service. How are you starting to change your operations? Let's say as a standard meter taxi operator, what kind of interface systems do you have? How easy is it for commuters, passengers to be able to use your service? How online friendly are you? This is the message that I feel they are missing.
And this is linked to the very current and very sad news that, I heard actually driving to today's recording. Yet another, I'm not sure if it's an Uber or Taxify driver, has been killed in South Africa's capital city, Tshwane. And apparently he was accosted and burnt alive, which is really, really sad. That was just making the news just not an hour ago. And then, of course, there's the news of Uber having to leave Morocco because it's just become untenable, frankly unsafe for their driver partners to continue to operate there. And so this is something we're going to dig into, not least because After Robots is yet another quote-unquote disruptive...
collaborative disruptive.
Okay, all right. So
we're not destructive.
He's not destructive.
Collaborate with them.
But disruptive nonetheless, right?
Nonetheless,
yeah.
But internally,
All right, no, let's talk about that. That's why I don't want us to spend too much time on the news tidbits. I've got too much brain power in the room to waste on talking about certain things. Vijay, what's on your mind? What stands out to you in terms of the last few weeks? Things that have started.
Well, certainly the huge drive and, as always, the big buzz around blockchain and cryptocurrency. People are driving this like you can't believe the amount of headlining. I think it's taken up nearly 80% of the news overseas, right?
Yeah.
And now
now
they're saying Africa is ready for. I don't know. We're still using cash around here.
Look, Bank of America says crypto is threatening its business model. No one asked them to sort of confess that, but they did. You know what I mean? So there must be something to it. I'm no sort of crypto fanatic. But I am sold on some of the use cases. And having recently interviewed the CEO of Venture Garden, they have as part of their portfolio Shore Remit, which is a spin-off business from the Shore Gifts business. And when you listen to his story and how they sort of surfed the ICO trend to do something that has just such a superb relevance to the market they're trying to serve. You can't help but admire the gumption and, frankly, just how well they did that. And just in case, some of you listeners haven't listened to that, go check it out at africantechroundup.com. Head to the Quick Tech Chats playlist. Look for my conversation with Bunmi Akinyemiju. I hope I said that right, of Venture Garden. But the long and short of it in that particular context, Shore Gifts didn't ask people to start using the vouchers they create as remittance tools, right? As little remittance opportunities. And so they stumbled upon this opportunity to create an infrastructure for remittances, a platform for remittances, and raise funds for their startup in the same, in one sort of death stroke. And I know this is not the same conversation as is Bitcoin the thing, or should I sort of liquidate my entire portfolio and put it in crypto? I know it's not the same debate, but I do think there's enough good stuff in there to be excited about it at least. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I want to say a use case for it, because there was someone who put on Twitter who was very frustrated, a proper use case. I'm thinking, why is Western Union still existing in Africa? I have no idea. But this lady, apparently from Zimbabwe, who works in South Africa, transferred $2,000 US dollars back to her family, and apparently cost $400 to do so. That is the issue right there. So if blockchain and cryptocurrency can solve that problem so that the transfer cost is literally cents and not $300.
Yeah.
I'm sold. That's where we can make the changes here.
Yeah.
But I'll also add to that is that I think the entire issue. Well, so I'm not so much from a cryptocurrency perspective, but from the blockchain itself. Africa, I would say, is ready because there are certain elements of the elements that you need to create a successful blockchain, which is what most of the cryptocurrency technologies are based on. I mean, you need the asset. You need to have an asset base, right? You need to have actors that would transact within the framework, and then also obviously the services that would be rendered within that framework. And once you have those key elements, which a lot of most things that we interact with, even from our perspective with the minibus, we have those core elements in order to do that. And we have also been looking at the blockchain technology ourselves moving forward to see how relevant can that be. Let's say from a trip perspective, when a commuter sends a commuter trip, that could create an immutable record of that trip once they engage with the taxi driver. That already on its own, data such as route utilization, so understanding passenger volumes and movements, vehicle flows. You can start to do like certain planning, dispatch frequency ratios. There's a couple of planning products that you can build from that, and blockchain is perfect.
And integrate with a lot of the startups out there that are already sort of blockchain enabling, sort of mapping and geolocating and things like that.
Because all those elements can create an immutable record that we can then refer to later on. And on top of that, there's a whole list of other planning products that can be generated.
But to Vijay's point, at best, right? This is according to the Internet Society. Like we're looking at 22% penetration on the continent, internet penetration, smartphones included. Okay, so the future's coming, right? But it's not here yet. And I think maybe that's what rubs some people up the wrong way in terms of the sort of practical application for blockchain-related technologies in the now as we head to a future that obviously is what you just described, Obakeng, which is, we are really on some level. Wakanda is going to happen at some point, right?
Right.
It's not just a figment of imagination. It's really a matter of time. But I suppose there is enough room for conversation, and I think we should have healthy conversation around what's the best way to participate. And sometimes I worry that the gap between Africa's ability to participate fully in this trend at the sort of top line level, right? You talk about, even if we just look at the computing power that would be required for the continent to collectively take on Asia or the US, North America or Europe in terms of mining crypto or participating in these trends, even with the ICOs we're starting to see pop up. I worry that we're not addressing like the systematic gaps that have been created, thanks to the likes of colonialism and others. And I don't think that creating a crypto craze necessarily solved that problem, number one. And I also don't think in terms of like the fact that, mobile is a thing on the continent, the sort of consumer opportunity or the consumerism linked opportunities of what it means to, we're mobile, isn't the same as sort of the broader issues around inclusion and real sort of beneficiation.
Well, what is the difference that the United States or Asia did? Because there was a stage where they were in a very similar socioeconomic state as Africa, not long ago. Singapore, 40 years ago, was very similar to Zimbabwe and South Africa in terms of socioeconomic status. What changed? What was the difference that Singapore pushed through, that the United States pushed through? And the answer I keep getting is they're supporting industrialism, supporting capitalism, and not feeling sorry for what they do. They just proudly built something that the world needed, That's something to look at. You tell me, what did they do differently to bridge that gap, to make them where they are today?
So it's funny you should mention that, because one of the things that stood out for me, a news item that stood out for me this past week, is the fact that Daimler's biggest investor is now Geely, which is a Chinese company.
Yes.
Which I say that to speak to perhaps the point you're making, which is the frankly, what's the word? The audacious sort of investment mindset that China has sported for decades now. And perhaps we need to start to do that. I mean, I chaired a panel at the Africa Tech Summit Kigali a couple of weeks ago. There was a sort of a government official on one of the panels, and I put it to him straight. What it seems to me is Rwanda is essentially mostly a protectionist state. That's what I sense, and he bristled when I put that to him, and because he didn't want to come across as though Rwanda's closed to investors, which that's not what I was saying. I was just saying in terms of the mindset or even their posture in terms of engagement with the rest of the world. It's Rwanda for Rwandans first, and then everyone else, and using that as a basis for engagement. I just think in terms of how we think about beneficiation and deal making and who benefits in the long term, in the short term, maybe we need to start asking more questions before we sign.
Well, China did that. First thing they did is, especially 20 years ago, when obviously all the cars were making phones, whatever, it was like terrible. But now the designer stuff is going on to China. It's become desirable for me to buy that instead of the American products. Yeah. But how they started was, number one, they started investing in property overseas, right? So they could create some sort of safe havens for Chinese people and businesses to set up shop. So they would buy out certain blocks, and they say all Chinese businesses can set up business here. It can literally be a bookstore. It can be Chinese food, anything. With that, they started sponsoring Chinese people a lot of money to go study overseas, study how the people at Harvard do it, people in Singapore do it, people in Australia do it. And then they would end up doing it. They end up understanding how they do it, come back, and they started building internally. Of course, some would stay over, and a lot of the intellectual property would be transferred. It started with that. Can Africa do it? Can we sponsor property, like find safe havens so that African businesses can set up shop in North America, Europe, Australia, what have you?
No, we're letting other businesses, I mean, look at iFlix. They come and set up an Africa business, quote unquote, and then sell it to Kwese. Now, listen, everyone who listens to the show knows I'm quite a big fan of the Econet Group. I am yet to meet the man who runs it, Strive Masiwa, but I'm a huge fan of his career and everything he's achieved. But there's something about the fact that, I'm not quite clear on the value that iFlix would have created in the short time they've been on the continent that's worth selling and buying and sort of publicizing as this big, awesome sale. You know what I mean?
So just to step in, because I actually wanted to raise this point earlier. So my take on the whole thing. So I fully that idea of having safe havens for African focused businesses to go and set up shop. That's it's so required. It's not even funny. But another thing that I would also say is that I think even as Africans, let's start playing to our highest common denominator,
which is what,
instead of our lowest. I think let's try and always have the best use cases being the ones that lead, instead of us, let's say, trying to say let's say on feature phones, for example. I would say rather that we try and drive smartphone penetration rather than trying to build feature phone solutions. Try and figure out the real challenge here is that smartphones are not penetrating. Let's rather fix that issue, because that then opens up the ability for us to try and leapfrog our way through to to try and compete with these people, versus, let's say, us trying to now build feature phone solutions that are very cumbersome. You're building for old tech, and eventually, no one really gets there. So I would say rather, let's say this, we build for the highest common denominator. So we try and take our best use cases and try and replicate those. So talking about markets, right? Looking at, let's say, I'll take it back to my specific market, and what we found out, right, is that for our particular demographic, which is actually LSM 3 to 7,
which for our overseas viewers, what does that mean?
So it's basically
overseas audience.
It's a life standards measure. So it's a life standards measure of what assets, goods and services people engage with, and what. So it's a
lens, I guess. It's a lens for seeing the consumer, and in this case, 3 to 7. We're talking about
economically relatively active people, because the entire economy. So let's say I'll take it back to the minibus, right? This economy survives on the minibus. The people that actually make the thing run itself, don't have sufficient cash to buy durable assets like vehicles. But you know what? They have a decent enough device because a lot of them work, they go to school. That's why they're traveling. So it's not like poor people. It's people that are actually economically active.
Upwardly mobile.
Yeah, they just want better sort of engagement solutions. So what we've actually found, which is actually really interesting, is that the commuter base, we're seeing a decent spread of smartphone penetration. In the taxi ranks itself, you see people in the taxi itself, they have decent low-end smartphones, which is what we then try to build for. Funny enough, the taxi drivers don't have, they have feature phones. So that's a problem that we're discussing with the industry and how to resolve that. But the commuter base would have that. So I'm just saying what we try to say is this, that let's look at best practice was these people realized, like from the story Vijay was saying, is that they realized people outside are doing something in a particular manner. Let's go focus on the best practice. That's what they've done. Focused on the best practice and then made that happen. So us as well, even our own successes, let's focus on our best practices and then try and push that,
Yeah.
But talking about taxis, Vusi, I think he's that entrepreneur that's on the news all the time.
Vusi Tembewayo?
Yeah, who said he wrote the speech for the finance minister.
Oh yes, Vusi Tembewayo apparently ghostwriting for the finance minister in South Africa. Yeah. But yeah, what about him?
He mentioned that the taxi industry is so wealthy in terms of cash resources. Why are they still getting loans from banks to buy taxis? Couldn't they work together, put the money together? They could literally start their own airline.
This massive stokvel. They could start a taxi stokvel. This, which is again, okay, go ahead.
So this is the issue, right? It's fragmentation.
Yeah,
it's the fragmentation of the system itself that has caused a lot.
Which system do you mean when you say, like
the minibus taxi? Let's say this. Literally each vehicle, on average, that if it's not an owner driver, it's an individual business. So the associations themselves, let's say they have like 200 or 300 members. You'll have 200 or 300 different businesses in that one association. It's very fragmented. It's very difficult to get anything going because why? You need 300, 200 approvals for doing something. You need, it needs to be done by voting, which is why the sort of the cooperative model was something that has been discussed to say, is it possible maybe to move it towards a co-op model where it's not each individual person having his own individual, business, but come together as a group. That's exactly what they're suffering from. Yeah, it's the fragmentation, which ironically is elements of past because we were in a space of much fragmentation, fragmentation to the minute degree, fragmentation from you two can't talk to each other, fragmentation. So they still have that mindset. That's, I think, one of the things we need to really work on fixing, but also then work on looking at best practices.
But what about the broader debate about the taxi industry corporately, which of course it's not, as you've just described.
It's not.
But if we think about it as, if we think about it inclusively, probably the largest, corporate business in black hands.
So I'm going to be controversial about that. And I apologize for that.
Yeah.
I'll say only from an operations perspective.
Dang, bruh.
Because when we really look at it, who owns the vehicles? It's not in black hands.
Yeah.
Who owns the spares, the parts, the fuel, Toyota, the
engine,
everything Total. Is so only from an operations perspective, I will concede, but everything else, unfortunately,
not. So based on that, what you just said, that concession you're making, or that unfortunate reality check, if the drivers, if the owners in this, owners again, quote unquote, the owners, I'm talking about the actual, taxi driver owners, if they don't come to the party and organize, they stand to be, I don't want to say disrupted, but they're going to get seriously hurt in the long term. Like worse, they're going to get hurt harder than anyone else.
And that's the unfortunate part of what the reality that
because the real owners basically are going to make money as the system evolves, regardless of what it looks like.
Yeah, so the ones that can realize that by pooling resources and coming together, right, and trying to make it more from an operations perspective and a business perspective are likely the ones to survive, right? The other ones are gonna struggle, but the way that they've kept the market at bay from an operations perspective has unfortunately been, and as we've seen, violence. You know,
so you do not mess with taxi drivers, with minibus taxi. Listen, the meter taxi guys, they seem to be, I mean, they're happy to concentrate their violence on each other, on people who step out. The minibus taxi fraternity, yeah, those you do not mess.
And that's unfortunate, because what it creates is a culture of having a captive client, in that the commuter becomes a captive client to the level that only when the taxi service is available, and in most areas, it's the only system that's available, right? But the moment that they have a viable alternative, and we've seen this happen, so the moment like a sort of a bus rapid transit system comes through, situation, or something comes through, what do commuters do? They go to where the service is. So what we're trying to explain to them is that it's not good to have a captive client. You must have a client that wants to engage with your service, not a client that has to. Because why then? You don't care for things like customer service. That's why you find the drivers are, they behave the way they do, because they know that this is a captive client, These are all some of it's actually mental issues more than anything that we're constantly trying to talk. We literally say to them, guys, the minibus taxi industry. In fact, I was at a intelligent transport systems conference in Melbourne, Australia, and I made a statement. I said that when it comes to the one-to-many route-based, load-based public transport service, the minibus taxi is the best public transport service in the world. Our job as After Robot is just to prove it, because when you look at all these other modes of transport, buses, planes, trains, they would not survive if it wasn't for the government subsidy. Yet you have the minibus that gets no subsidy, yet can take all this market share. So we're saying there's a lot of good in the system itself. However, it's the informality, it's the fragmentation, it's the lack of looking at, what are the best practices out there, as was discussed. It's not focusing on client services, but just being there and playing also on not value, but on price, trying to be the cheapest service. That causes a lot of the issues that we're finding.
To the point, again, to the point you just made, Vijay, we were talking off mic about how, there's some people claiming, some researchers claiming now that in certain cities, Uber actually making things worse, i.e.,
making things worse in the traffic.
In terms of the traffic condition issues. And to the point you're making, I'm trying to think about how quickly South Africa would unravel, or just how clogged the streets would be if the taxi business decided to disappear, or
it'd be a mess.
It'd be a mess.
We've seen it right last year in June in Durban when they stopped working, in Gauteng here in November when they stopped. It's a total mess.
You can say Uber and Taxify, they're dope solutions for the sort of more affluent class, but as a practical Africa relevant solution or South Africa relevant solution,
no, they can't cope. 2/3, even buses. The buses were stressed, like the trains. Because think about it, when guys that have 70% of the market share stop working, everyone else is owning just the 1/3 of the market, right?
Right.
If they stop working, no matter how much they're scrambling, it's a problem. But what we're saying is, we're trying to say, let's think about how to use systems and cross sector as well. Whatever's happening in different spaces, how can we try to use that to make that business better and more viable?
Barry Hilton, the comedian, he spoke about this very situation. He was speaking to a mostly obviously middle class crowd, and
Barry Hilton being a middle-aged white male,
exactly, telling guys. This service, the taxi business, is not going anywhere. Stop complaining about it in traffic.
It's a very middle-class thing to do.
Yes, exactly. Complain. Right? I complain about it too. I'm driving the car. Look at this taxi cutting me off again. What the hell? But he's saying it's not going anywhere because it's the only service that if you say stop here, they stop here, And if you ask them to take me there, they stop there. It's the only service in South Africa that does that.
Yeah.
Anywhere, especially the poor
Not
can
even
access.
Uber and Taxify get that right sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's accessible all over the country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you replace that?
It speaks to who gets blamed for what, right? It's the commuter who's demanding that action.
Yes.
It's not actually the taxi driver, right? It's the commuter who's saying, I want to stop here. I want to get off there, right? So a lot of the times, when I started after robot, you have to go and pitch, like to try and get funding. And typically the person who's on the other side of the table, as you said, would be a middle class, typically not my hue, would be of a lighter
Obakeng
hue.
is pretty black. just heads up. Yeah.
So and it's that trying to drive that this thing is important to fix to someone who has this visceral feeling about this thing, and then you're asking for money for it. So it's part of the challenges that we've had and
context.
In the context of it. But let's say to the commuter, right? This is what we're saying, even for the commuter, right? We want to try and improve the service, right? So one of the things to improve a service is you need to plan for it.
Okay, so
Now,
before you go there, I want you maybe it's helpful to explain when you say improve the service. Maybe for a lot of our listeners, that service isn't even clear, and perhaps in helping you or setting you up to explain what you're solving for. I was on the How bus the other day, which is the feeder sort of bus service linked to the How train, which is the high speed train, that we have in Gauteng. And I remember getting a weird feeling of, oh man, the bus isn't dropping me off where I want to be, because literally where the bus stop is and where I was going is like 50 meters apart. If I'd been on a taxi, I would have been dropped off exactly where I wanted to be. But the How bus doesn't stop anywhere except where there's a How bus stop, right? And so I think that's really an interesting window into transport culture in general that we've all just started to discuss. And we're probably leaving a lot of people confused about how this all works and how, frankly, 70% of our population on the continent or in South Africa gets around.
And by the way, so we've been to Kenya and we spoke to some of the guys from the SACCOs. We did actually get to engage with some guys, but it was around the borders, between Uganda and we had gone to Swaziland. So this mode of transportation is basically ubiquitous. It's all over the continent. It goes by different names.
Matatus in East Africa. Yeah. Okay.
So maybe to step back, right? I'd like to explain this from how we like to highlight the difference between what we're doing and let's say what a service of a taxi, let's say if you were in Europe or the States, what people think of as taxi. So we define it as this way. For us, public transport is defined in two ways. It's got two service types and two modes. So two modes and two service types. That's how you kind of have to figure it out. Now, the modes. The first mode would be the one-to-one mode. Now, one-to-one mode will pick you up from your point of origin, because every trip has an OD pair, right? Origin and destination, and drop you off at your point of destination, route agnostic, meaning there is no route. So a meter taxi, a taxi as people would think about it, that would be a one-to-one service or a one-on-one service. It would fetch you from wherever you are and drop you off wherever you want to go. So that's a one-on-one service, right? As a mode. Then there are a lot of solutions geared towards that. So the Ubers of the world, Taxify,
which doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't?
No, I tried it. I mean, we downloaded the app in Kigali. It does not work.
Oh, over there. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, anyway,
sorry, this is hot take. I don't know why I'm flowing these hot takes.
Like I'd say, okay, so maybe coming from a developer's perspective of trying to implement a solution like that has also a physical space attached to it. Just understand maybe the difficulty those guys are trying to get through. Uber resolved it by having literally their own vehicles, right?
Yes.
Now it is more a bit challenging when you're trying to collaborate with those guys, the actual transport operators, and those kind of challenges. So maybe to their defense, I have to try and just talk on their behalf. But as a fellow creator
of a solution in the mobility space,
thrown under a bus like that and not try and comment.
Or to run under a minibus, you mean?
I hope not.
That Anil is driving. So it's funny because I raised them with tongue in cheek because there's another question I want to ask you once you're done setting the setting.
Okay, fine.
And it has to do with Afritaxi and Diego Moto and what I observed in Kigali. But let's carry on. Right. You were on the modes of transport before the hot take. Okay.
So it's the modes, right? So so that's the one-on-one mode. Then you've got the one-to-many. So there's only two modes, right? Now, one-to-many will typically be route-based. You as a user, your origin and destination has to be along the service provision route. So let's say, unless if you're filthy rich, right? If you want to use an airplane, you have to go to the airport, right? And from the airport, you go along a dedicated route with many other people. Now, if you go use a train, it's the same thing. A bus, it's the same thing.
Right.
Minibus is the same thing. It goes along a particular route, right? So it's a one-to-many route-based service mode. Then you got the two service types. A scheduled service, meaning at 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, regardless of the load factors in the vehicle, that vehicle will depart. So you get to the hub bus, right? If there's one person in that 60-seater, right, and it's 3 o'clock, it'll leave. It doesn't matter how many people are in there, right?
As tends to be the case at around 3 o'clock, as it happens. You know what's up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I did not just make that.
Yeah.
I know why I said it.
Okay.
And then, so that's the service type, right? So that's the scheduled service.
Right.
Then you've got the load-based service, which is what? It's about load maximization. So it's about making sure that the vehicle is always full. It always has a load. And this is what the minibus is.
They do not leave until that thing is full.
You know, if you get to the rank and you're the first guy there and it's 3 o'clock,
unlucky, bro.
You're gonna wait for it to fill up. If you're the last person and you get there, you know, Bob's your uncle, you leave. So this is what we're trying to work around. Now, around this element that you've spoken about with the how train and the stops, right? The bus stops. Now, one of the challenges we're having is the flexibility is good for commuters, right? To be able to stop anywhere, right?
Yes.
However, one of the things that you lose out, because you know with life, the concept of opportunity cost, right? What you gain on the swings, you lose on the roundabouts.
Yeah.
Is that with that super flexibility, you lose out on planning and an ability to plan. How
and safety, dude.
Really,
what about safety?
I was going to get to that. You lose a big portion or big element on safety. So I think one of the things commuters just need to think about is we're looking at convenience versus trying to say, how do we sort out all these other gremlins, the planning issues, all these other funding issues? One of the issues funders have a lot is that, but we can't plan for something that's just anywhere. We need a fixed point of reference, which is why all other modes would have that fixed point of reference, right? So it's a challenge that we need to overcome. Yeah. How do we find a middle ground between, you know, the informality, but also then the flexibility and the formal systems, but the funding and the subsidization and the safety. So there's all these things that come to play.
Which brings me to why I kind of tongue-in-cheek threw in Afritaxi earlier on, referenced Diego Moto earlier on, because what I learned in observing and listening to Diego Moto's CEO and founder talking about his company, I can't get to his name right now, but I instantly got the sense this is hype. You know, when I saw they were listed as a sponsor of, you know, Africa Tech Summit, yada, yada. Then speaking to him, I was like, we need to watch this. I think the solution to what you just described, public-private partnership, which is really the basis of the platform that Diego Moto is building. It has the blessing of the Rwandan government. It is looking to solve for the pain points that the government has identified in the space of these motos or bodabodas that have like swarmed the city. They've tried to ban them. They've tried to, you know, jail drivers and, you know, disincentivize people from turning to this as a living. None of that's worked. And apparently the 1 to 2 times they tried to take them off the roads entirely, the same thing that happened here the same thing that happens in South Africa when taxi drivers, you know, go on strike happened over there. So they realized as a government that they needed to figure out a way to regulate the space. Diego Moto swoops in with this platform that adds value to these drivers, you know, helps them create a steady flow of income, gives them credit records, and delivers a big brother solution to the government and a healthy injection to the fiscus. right? And I raise all this why? Because I feel like your company and the concept you're trying to pitch, surely the solution to most of the pain points you've described are solved by corporatizing with government blessing. Is that far-fetched to say?
Well, not really. It's not far-fetched to say, because ultimately public-private partnerships are what really makes sense. I mean, Gautrain is a triple P, the BRT is a triple P. So you are correct in terms of the fact that, yeah, in essence, this is what is meant to do.
And the other thing is Uber's not. And Uber is intentionally not. And in fact, it's a big part of the brand that they're not. And it's not just they're not, they just rub it in everyone's faces, including their drivers, including everybody. It's like, perhaps that's not constructive. And perhaps you should never go that route.
Which is why we're saying that it's about collaboration, trying to work together to find this solution. Our focus was always to say that, every year people are discussing how do we actually create a really integrated public transit rapid network where you have integration between buses, you have minibuses, all kinds of modes, because it's about actually commuter movements, right? How does the commuter or passenger move from one point to the next? Now, in order to do that, what we then realized is that we need to be able to compare apples with apples. A lot of the systems that are built out there are for the formal sort of transport systems. And then you have this big informal system that has no systems in place. It's going to always be a challenge to try and integrate that. So our pitch to the operators is to say, here is this potential for other revenue streams and other revenue building, right? Other revenue building to improve your business. Our whole take is this, that it's about how do you improve your business as an operator and also generate other revenue streams. Information being one other possible revenue stream that they've never been used to. The only thing is, we call them a warm bum in the seat. That's the only way that they're generating revenue. And our whole point is to say, but there's other multiple platforms and revenue streams that you can build into. So our focus is to them is say, look where everyone else is. It's inevitable. The world has changed, no matter how we deny it. It's inevitable. The world has moved to a certain position. You can either choose to ignore the change, and we've seen what happens to certain companies. And it's not really particular just to let's say the minibus. I mean, you've got a lot of blue chip companies or even mobile based companies that we know of before that are no longer around, or film making companies that just didn't see the digital wave and how it
Kodak.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, Airtel, to be fair, you're still out there, but we see you, fam. Like, you're changing names, you're selling off.
I'm asking, Afterbot. Is Afterbot
After Robot?
Sorry, what am I thinking?
After Robot, which is what you say when you're in a taxi and you want to drop off after the robot.
So that's why they stop after the robot.
After Robot.
Yeah.
After Robot.
No, you should call it in front of my carbot.
No one actually says that. But if the person wants to stop, if where the person wants to stop happens to be in front of where you're parked,
well, hey, that's
what's going to happen.
That's what I mean. Or front of me, inconveniencing middle class spot.
Hey, bro, you're just gonna have to drive. You're just gonna have
such
to
an
wait.
inconvenience.
Okay. So basically, the application will help me get a taxi. So basically, you say I'm here, and they will come pick you up.
And I'm going to a particular location. So this is but understand, so this is what we're trying to do first of all. Okay. We're bringing the operators onto the space because like Uber would do it or any other company, you need to get the drivers on board.
You need a critical mass of actual service providers.
Yeah, service providers. Once they kind of are understanding what is there, then you need sort of a first movers of commuters that would be willing to try out a service, right? Then you need to build these two people, and then you need to bring these two together in a way that kind of makes sense for them to start ironing out the kinks, making sure that the things are working. Yeah. And then once that is there, so I imagine, then you can really scale. So where we are is, we are in that transition period between the operators, the taxi drivers have it. They've used it for a bit. They've had one or two commuters, but we need to get a bigger sort of number on, which is why then we went to the taxi rank and said, hey guys, can you, but specifically to just the route.
So they had dancers out there in the taxi rank.
Just like to the route. Just that.
Why does it say no? know why. What is telling them, I don't like this? Are they just being facetious, as in anything technology means will take away our business? Why are they being?
You know what?
Firstly, they have feature phones, guys. Let's start there. Like
so let's say the first challenges was the device profile, right? In that guys are having this kind of a device. So our discussion to them was, okay, but you know what? You have moved. You think you haven't moved, but look, you've moved because you're not using landlines. 15 years ago, these things were also thought of as useless. So this feature phone that you have, by the way, went through a lot to get to your hand. You know, it was cumbersome. Its battery wouldn't last.
In 2001, my dad said I didn't need one. No one would ever need one. No 17-year-old at varsity needed
in fact,
the 3310, no one.
Yeah, the very best experts at the time, I think, said that.
Yes, but a 3310 is made of vibranium.
Yeah. You know, that's... but the addressable market size, they said back then, was like maximum in the world 600,000 units.
And to my dad, Andile was not part of that addressable market. He was like, nah, this dude must not be part of this.
So at least they have feature phones. So when we discuss with them, we're like, but you've moved. You don't realize that you've moved. But here you're having a mobile device. You're not dependent on a landline. So that's the first
thing. You're not rushing home to go make a call.
Yeah, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. So that's a move in itself. Now we are saying take the next step, that the feature phone itself has limitations. So take the next step to what would really allow you to engage with the technology.
Color screen. Touch screen.
Well, if they are using feature phones, what if you could turn it around and they could use the feature phone to tell them where the passengers are in terms of numbers?
Oh man, we've tried some. So we worked with
as in USSD based stuff.
Yeah, we worked with the CSRR about I think 2 years ago.
Okay.
We tried it. We tried using like a USSR based, USSD based sort of implementation. It was called Mobi4D, and oh man, you know, just the work that's involved in trying to map the routes. You need particular codes. You got the time limit. You need to take this whole packet of data, send it to your server, compile the info, send it back. It was just it's difficult.
Yeah.
So it's actually easier to get them to use a smartphone.
It's got its location. You can start engaging with the thing.
So maybe your service should actually be, if you sign up on After Robot. You sign up on After Robot, you get a free cell phone, a free smartphone.
So this is the business model we're driving. So we've got a dual-sided business, basically. The mass market side, which is the commuter side. That's why on their side, we just have an app on the Play Store that people can download and use. But yeah, from the operator's perspective, we're actually looking at driving smartphone penetration. And part of the challenges we're having is obviously talking to the network operators to say, guys, I mean, you're in the business of selling smartphones. Here's a potential sort of market that we're saying, if obviously takes off, there's a whole... I mean, it's last time when we did the analysis, it's close to 800,000 units just in South Africa alone of a potential of the smartphone penetration, you know?
Yeah.
And to say if we did that, you know, that could really open up a lot of things for different services.
And so how are you going about this? Are you trying to conquer specific geographies, certain cities, or certain major routes? How are you sort of biting at this?
So unfortunately, due to, you know, resource constraints, we have to be practical about it, which is why what we then did is to say we're gonna be association and route specific, because that's the only way for us to kind of, you know, build it on this route, build it out, get it to work. Yeah, have the solution online and tell people download it, but it's only working in this area, and then spread like that.
There's nothing wrong with that. You almost sound apologetic. I think that's the most sensible way. Also, isn't that, I mean, our neural pathways are like seared to know, you know, the route. Like most Joe Burgers who've had to use the taxi, you know, route system have that seared in their heads. Like, why would you introduce something different? I suppose that's a good place to start.
Yeah, so just doing that organically. The challenge with that is obviously with scaling and trying to get investment and people.
Your investment, when you say investment, is a stock fell that the taxi guys have. That's your investment.
Yeah, but then they need to. They need to see
the value.
They need to see the value first. They need to work past. Oh, I need this. The smartphone's actually worth investing in over my feature phone.
Yeah. So
Your
this is
POC, that's your POC, right?
Yeah, so this is the challenge we find ourselves in, that for every associate, like I said, the fragmentation of it is what drives the challenge. So this you literally need to do for every association. You first need to show them the value of the solution before they can invest.
And how many associations in the country?
It's about 330 last count. So there's a lot.
So in terms of POC, you said show value.
Yeah.
POC being
proof of concept. So what are you actually going to show to tell? Let's say I'm a taxi owner.
Yeah.
I get, I don't know, 50 taxis, 100 taxis normally, right? What do you have to show me to say, okay, I want to sign up? What's a minimum viable product?
So for the operators, the minimum viable product is showing them basically the dispatch frequency ratios. So how many people are in their vehicle, from which taxi ranks, at what time during the day, and what that looks like. So how is their vehicle being used? Not only from where is, and then obviously vehicle location as well. But just basically, how is my car being used? So how many commuters are actually engaging with my vehicle? For them, that's because
comparing it
remember,
with
this is what they
do.
then can calculate, because we don't have a payment platform on there. We specifically decided not to have one simply because of I'll say the politics.
You just didn't want to get shot, bro. Like as soon as you
I still want to
choose your battles, bro.
life is.
They're gonna be like, oh, so you want to bank us? All right, bro.
Okay. So from that perspective, they are able to understand a lot about their business, basically.
So then, how do you monetize then?
It's the child versus the mother. We're selling sweets to a child. The child wants the sweets. They the ones that using it, but we're trying to identify who's the mother who would pay for the sweet. And the mother here
so
being...
it's a data play?
Yeah, the mother here being anybody who would use the data itself, be it corporates who would like to know, where their staff is. There are a lot of people that do shift work and factory work, and you see them having to get a lot of shuttle services because why? They need to guarantee certain times for production for a lot of things. Warehouses have awkward times operating, and just normal businesses. Over and above that. So what we're saying to them is this, that there are certain people that would be willing to initially pay for that data. So pay for this thing up front. But once they see the value in that, then they should take over.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, look, sure. We're going to get to you, VJ,
well, I'm
in
quite
a second.
interested.
This is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
And, so there's two things that I see as parallels between what you guys are trying to do in Yego Moto. In that, firstly, there's an acknowledgement of the public-private partnership-esqueness of what needs to happen if this is going to be sustainable. No small thanks to Uber showing us what happens when you decide to just, be gung-ho about the whole thing. And then the second one is the platform play, which is, this isn't about A to B in terms of like the way we think about mobility and how I think the typical person on the street thinks about how these technologies are just enabling us to get from point A to point B in an easier fashion. This is, if you're going to be a founder or an investor in the space, about a clear roadmap that shows the value of a potential platform that yields value elsewhere. Have I got that right?
Yeah, so basically where people move is important for a lot of people. You got people that plan shopping malls. You got people that are, thinking about where to set up shop. There's a lot of planning data that can be informed by understanding where people are moving, basically where they're sending commuter requests from, where they're getting onto the vehicle and where they are getting off. Right. That kind of data. So yes, for the individual, it's about my point A to point B, but it's larger than that. Even for the operator themselves, to say that if taxi operators, right? There's sometimes, there's places where the queues are so long. I mean, you go past the Monte Casino on William Nicole, or you do like, Jan Smarts, you'll find that especially in the afternoon peak, the lines would stretch, and that shows you that the operators are struggling with their planning. They're not able to plan their taxis.
The guy's getting his car washed somewhere.
Or even they don't have enough, for that particular point, or they don't place them strategically enough, knowing that there's traffic and all these other things, that these lines are just always constantly building, Then on the off-peak side, they're just chilling, where it's like lost utilization. It's similar to the issues that network operators have, right?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that during the peak times, you've got sufficient capacity for the peak times?
You're not over-invested in infrastructure.
Exactly. But then in the off-peak times, you're then able to utilize that off-peak, services. So this is the same thing that data would help them understand. This is why we're saying this is operator. It's about you and your business, other revenue modes. Then on top of that allows you to go and pitch to investors. My take is this. Why should these operators only get funding from government? Government goes out to institutional investors and gets money. They could do the same. There's nothing stopping them from, having their data, getting on a plane, going to Europe or America or wherever and saying, this is our business. This is what we're running. Here's, these are our revenues. We're looking for CapEx, let's say, because one of the challenges we're finding is that they are taking their OPEX and so their operating expenditure, but using that operating expenditure for capital expenditure as well.
Yeah.
Unlike other businesses that, when likes of a network operator needs to invest in base stations, what do? They go to the capital markets, raise funding, and then are able to build that capacity out in order to increase their revenue.
Yeah. And so, and you touch on another problem that we were talking about off mic, and I want to just address it a little bit, is about just how, again, if that whole public-private partnership is going to work, not only do you need like the political blessing of the business of government or lawmakers, as Yego Motors, they pretty much be knighted over there in Rwanda, right? But not only do you need that, you actually need like the actual cash or financial backing, right? And what you were telling us earlier about like the South African government's frankly lackluster support of public transport. How's it? I suppose that's the other side of things where you need policymakers. That's the other side of your sell over time, is getting policymakers to appreciate that, hey guys, if the need is this large, the potential is this large, you guys are going to need to invest far more than you are right now.
So this is the challenge we're having, that politically, when there are discussions, people talk about, transport ministers say how they're going to support the minibus taxi industry. Then when you look at the budget spend, this is where the allocations, that is the true reflection of where people want to really make an impact. It's the exact opposite.
So what's it now? Give us a sense.
So the last time we looked at a report, it gave us a sense that they're looking at something in the region of about 200 billion in the next year in terms of infrastructure spend, and of that, they're talking about expansion projects for the Gautrain, moving to other areas within the province. So the majority of what was discussed was going to rail. I think rail took something like almost 150, and then buses took another 40. It was 49, 48. The minibus was only allocated something like 1.2 billion.
And then what's the percentage of people actually using minibuses relative?
Well, in terms of public transport itself, minibuses make up over 70% of the public transport users. So look how upside down.
Policymakers listening to us right now, right? Like just let that sink in a bit.
I asked about that, and one guy said it's because of the cartel situation that the taxis operate. The government guy told me it's been difficult to get it to them because, for one thing, it's private. The infrastructure for rail and minibus, so the trains and the buses are actually public-private partnerships, and that's why they've put more money in. While this is actually fully private.
That sounds like a Silicon Valley investor on why they don't invest in Africa.
Yes, but this is a government guy telling me.
My point to them is always this, that they are still providing a public service. Whether it's private or not, they are providing the biggest public service. So it is incumbent upon them to try and fix that, because why every year then the complaints never stop?
You're just saying it's hard. Basically what you're saying is what your contact told you or confessed is that it's super hard work.
Yes.
And we'd rather not. There are easier ways to spend.
It's easier to get a lot of buses and BRTs.
And the Gautrain is just neater.
Yeah,
it looks better on videos.
Exactly.
But it's not a true reflection of what's going on.
The other thing I asked him is, why don't they set up such a way that, again, it comes back to the after robot situation where they stop in front of you in the robot, Why don't they make such a way that minibuses can stop nicely and pick up passengers? And that's because the infrastructure doesn't include budget for them because they are private. That's another answer I got.
And then, so to think about that, they're a high occupancy vehicle. So you go to any, let's say, developed country, right? And you look at their policies around high occupancy vehicles.
Priority immediately.
High occupancy vehicles get priority in all the places. Single occupancy vehicles, there's surcharges to drive into city centers. There's all these things that they put in, right? So that argument always falls flat because it is still giving, like I'll still say, it's still giving a public service. It's giving the biggest public service. So by you saying, no, they're private.
Just in terms of savings, as you put it, right? Just in terms of like infrastructural savings, like I know like the taxi industry, like we're associated with like the congestion it causes and how difficult it makes it to drive, especially like downtown in Johannesburg. But I think even in town planning terms, the economic benefit of having them there.
But
It would
it has
outstrip-
to.
yeah.
It
It
has
would-
to.
yeah.
Because my housekeeper, that's the only transport she has to come to. And if sometimes she can't make it, and we can't operate our business because she can't be there to help us because transport's not available or it doesn't operate at a certain time. And it's too expensive for us, so it costs us money. Imagine it costs her less than half to come to us. It actually costs us less to pay for her as well. So it saves us money. Why is this? It should be a no-brainer, even from my perspective, to invest in this.
Yeah.
I can't believe you said it was only 1.2 billion. And
this is what we're saying is that they don't see the opportunity cost. So the cost of them going away from this alternative is that they are spending more money trying to fix things instead of if they just spent it on this excuse about it's a private business. For me, I mean, because if it's giving such a public service, it's only private because at the time when it was needed most, government wasn't there to do it. So private citizens stepped in. That's the reason for it. So you can't still keep saying, yeah, but it's no.
Yeah,
if you could fix it, give them priority. So one of the discussions we're having is to say, minibus taxis drive the way they do because why? They have to now also jostle with normal traffic. Yet a BRT system, they
Overnight,
give them priority lanes from the start.
they've got their own lane. It says bus on
From the
it,
start,
the yellow lane.
From the start.
Yeah.
Why is it okay to give them and then not? And yet, remember now, these are public funds. It's also affecting us publicly as well. We should have a say in how it's used because if this is a public service that's been rendered like this, I think certain sayings should now start to be let go because they're not helping the situation.
Yeah.
They really need to be let go.
Wow.
My question is then why is government not having a partnership?
Well,
is it because of taxes?
I've been thinking about because you've asked that question almost 3 times now, and I was sitting here thinking, roll back and think about the vested interests here.
Yeah,
right. Firstly, there's the fractured thing that you talk about, which to me it speaks to how readily banks or financial institutions have been disrupted by non-financial incumbents who have joined the sort of mobile money craze. Banks sat there and crunched the numbers about what it would cost to get someone in Tabanchu banked. And they did the numbers and they just thought, like, this is ridiculous, right? And also, so I'm trying to think in terms of this industry and all the potential, service providers that would need to collaborate to deliver a unified service to this industry. And I'm trying to work backwards to why wouldn't this make business sense for, say, all the players in a room to make this happen? They're just easier ways to make money, like on infrastructure spend, on a big mobility spend, politically the wins of having a how train and how good it makes you look.
So what you're saying is we're doing everything we can to make sure that tourists and foreign and FDI is more sufficient to us.
Yes, and
that's
right.
so sad.
And right now, and that's just the truth. I was saying it in a million words.
Yeah.
That's basically the truth. And then if you think about all the other sort of private players that could potentially profit from these people, they've never had a heart for the industry to begin with. So they're happy to finance a whole new fleet of taxis. They're happy to, you know what I'm saying? If you're like a bank or whatever.
These high interest rates.
These high interest
exactly.
rates.
And they know these
money
guys
don't
buy
have a
taxes for
choice.
cash.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now that's why are they not doing it? Because it's also because of fragmentation.
Yes. Because again, it takes 300 dudes with probably limited appreciation or understanding for financial matters and often zero mentorship, except maybe second or third generation ownership of this taxi business, to like get together and suddenly become Sanlam? It's not going to happen.
They could have their own bank, right?
Yeah,
and put the money
insure
in
themselves,
there,
or
insure them, and then.
But I
therein
think
lies the challenge. I think it's the fragment, and one of the things also, it's the fragmentation leads to a lot of things. So one of the things we've picked up, and it's one of the reports that we are discussing, is that it's the way that, let's say, taxi drivers are hired. Literally, just a guy comes in off the street, says, "I've got a driver's license." Owner would interview him, or somebody's kid who doesn't have a job. That's the kind of person who then just becomes a taxi driver. So no thought into, how important this person is that's providing the service. They're using my vehicle. I mean, these things are worth hundreds of thousands of rands, all sorts of things. And you'll find that there are systems in the association, let's say, that are talking about owners need to come to the association. There's a pool of drivers. There's a pool of things that they try and organize. But because the owners themselves are a business unto themselves, that fragmentation, it's hard for them to try and enforce that. So it's that fragmentation that like you said, for them, the guys were probably generations of taxi drivers. He became a driver for a long time. Then he got enough cash to buy his own vehicle. Now he hires another kid going down that same line.
Right.
None of the stuff you were talking about, that planning that would create a Sanlam.
Yeah.
None of that's happening.
None of that's going to happen.
Okay,
but maybe let me say, so I can't really, so there's some things as well that I'm learning within the space itself. There are certain private initiatives that are taking place that I really can't mention. I don't have the authority to, but that when I see, give me hope that there is a possibility for change. And the people themselves as well have kind of heard of After Robot. We've had discussions with them. They kind of seen where we want to take it, and they kind of thinking the same line. So there is, I'll say this though, I'll leave with this. There is hope that this kind of potential future planning could occur. Whether it could occur, whether it is going to happen quick enough that myself as a startup obviously needs to survive. We've only got a certain runway. That's beside the point. But when I do see it, I see that there is hope for this kind of thinking to happen.
Yeah, look, I mean, I can't help but be optimistic and hopeful, actually, that you're right about that. And yeah, I suppose, there was a segue 20 minutes ago that I wanted to exploit to sort of swing the conversation your way, VJ, because there's something you said, Obakeng, about the difficulty in selling the premise and what the opportunity is to potential investors, right? And how difficult that proves to be because of the lack of context or understanding, or even lived in context that you and I probably have relative to a lot of other people, who you probably need money from and don't have. And so the last time you were here, VJ, we also talked about context.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was in a different context. But similar issues, but just unique. It's kind of unique to your personal experience as a startup founder on the continent, building out value-adding businesess on the continent, and being told that you're not impact enough, or you're not scaly enough, and you're not this and that enough. And you're actually, the last time you were here, you're pretty, flipping frustrated. But but a lot's happened since then.
Give him a piece of your mind.
Yeah, dude, that he that show trended, man. It was like,
because I don't know if you heard that one. But what I'm saying is that when they come to South Africa or Africa generally, they want to invest in social impact, or social impact in inverted commas, I should call it, or inverted, whatever they call it, inverted apostrophe, whatever.
Yeah.
To them, social impact means it has to have some direct poverty impact, right?
I tell you, hey.
All I'm saying is,
so frustrating.
do you want to improve the lives of Africans? Make a black man or woman wealthier.
Yeah, don't hand out.
Yeah,
dig a well.
Yeah,
That's what they want. They want to dig a well.
getting from living in this condition into this condition,
man. You've touched, like,
all you have to do is that.
thing.
And that's her whole point of wealth creation. And then you making money as a result because he's making money.
You've created an ecosystem. Like this was my thing, is that social impact is, if we can fix let's say, I'll always take it to my element, right? If we can fix the operating environment for, let's say, an operator to work better and more efficiently, get more revenue, that has an social impact in terms of them getting a better service to commuters, safer services. So you even working on the safety element, that has an economic impact because there's more revenue flowing.
Right.
That is social impact.
Yeah, but it's not VR, dude.
Yeah, but see, they're talking about like
because that's the other thing, right? So either it's that social impact thing, or if it's not AI, or
if it's not blockchain,
or VR.
But I'm even saying it has the elements of creating a blockchain. So create it. If you want to have it, it's got the players, the assets, there's the transactions. So if you help it build out, it can create a blockchain.
Then it's a question of scale. And we all know how Google had billions of users when they first started. No, they did not, right? So it was a future play, right? But no, for us, there has to be an immediate...
Yeah, that's the whole point. They want to see something like, it's helping 1,000 people not have hepatitis. Okay, I like what you're doing.
Immediate traction, immediate scale.
Exactly. So that doesn't work. Like that. In fact, when I pitched my previous business, You Baby and I, which is a parenting company that connects mothers to companies. Yeah. It can be mothers from any LSM to brands in any LSM, really. Yeah. So, but they look at that and go, but you look like you are communicating with mothers with SUVs, Right. That immediately put that impression on their head. It's like, sorry.
Why? Because it's a pretty site?
Yeah, exactly. Is it a pretty site?
Does it hurt to have nice UI?
Is it because I drove here in a Beamer? Like, what's the problem here? Like, what's the thing?
Yeah, I mean, remember, the people who are buying this are moms SUVs, yes. But the people who are selling the product are coming from, low-end sort of environments, and we're making them wealthier because they're building a product that they want to buy, right?
And the good news is someone got it eventually.
Eventually, yes.
So you guys landed investment since
we have recently, yes.
So like what? So well done, yeah.
Well done.
Well done.
Thank you.
It's not easy.
It's not. No, it's not. But what did it come down to? Because I think this is really formative. I love how this is coming full circle from the last time you were here.
Yeah.
So like what did your investors get that other people had missed before? What story maybe did you have to tell? What did you have to tweak about your offering? I'm hoping you didn't have to sell your soul or flip and change everything you thought you'd need to do and bend over backwards to to comply. What happened?
Just two things. For one thing, we just persisted. Okay, we just kept the story. Our company just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So again, it came back to traction.
It got undeniable.
Undeniable. So the traction was there. So that was undeniable. Second one was there were more women in the panel who are adjudicating the business, who actually understood it better than the male counterparts. See, they see it as, just moms doing whatever. While the women who are that's important.
Diversity.
People in my community.
To my biggest point, right? There, what you've said. So maybe also to also highlight. So we were also fortunate that so basically Qualcomm came on board and
dang, bruh.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to sue Apple. They're pretty big.
They're
trying to sue Apple,
but via their wireless reach initiative. So we kind of also were fortunate to show them the potential of what we're doing from a future business perspective.
That's
so
good.
wireless reach came on board, Qualcomm wireless reach. So I'll say to that, but that what you've just said now speaks to the point of why it's important to have different elements of society be empowered
and represented.
Yes. This is the problem we are finding. This is, and funny enough, there was a book, I won't mention the book, but a guy that wrote it in 1986, right? That was talking about, and he was a guy who benefited from the old system, talking about how it's not smart to push down so many people of your population and also trying to compete globally. But he wasn't very liked. I won't mention his name, but this speaks to it. If there were more guys like me that understood, that had been on taxis, on the panels, we would have gotten further, which is why that you find, right? The same people get funding that look like the people that are sitting across. So
wait, you guys have this in common, that you guys got money at a pitching competition. We're not huge fans of these pitching competitions.
Yeah, I also hated it. That's why I wasn't really doing much competitions. This was very simple, where you apply to formally and say, I would like to come in and talk to you about it. So
this was a VC?
It's a VC fund that they run a accelerator program. And through that, they go through 4 phases of funding. So it's 4 phases. Mm-hmm. So it starts off with product development, marketing, business planning, etc.
Was this a local VC?
Local VC.
It's like to say which one?
Yeah. It's called IDF, which is predominantly funded by Telkom.
I know IDF. We're going to have them on the show in the coming weeks. Yeah.
So we are Telkom Future Makers ambassadors. So that's part of the program. That's part of the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's and the reason why I pitched. What I changed is I emphasized my wife's more. And say, you know what? Put a woman's face in the company. Come on, go and push it out there. I tend to pitch. It's not nice. You do it. You are building something.
Concept. Like why? Yeah.
Exactly. So you do it. You pitch. Go and talk to them. I'll support you as your CTO, but do your thing. And that also helps because Future Makers Fund is actually trying to fund more women businesses. So you talk.
And it wasn't fronting because your wife actually runs the ship.
Yes, exactly. She is the CEO. Because she says, you're the talker, you're the startup guy. I say, no, I know, I understand. But
so even the lesson for her is don't underestimate the importance of your voice and your role.
Yes.
In representing your own hustle, representing your own needs as a founder, representing your place in the world in this entrepreneurial community, which tends to be male dominated.
And her emotions comes through much better because she's speaking from her personal experience.
Yeah. All right.
So funny enough,
and wait, you guys, did you pitch Qualcomm?
So we've had a mixture. So we've won a few competitions, Gauteng Innovation Competition. The Ericsson App of the Year competition for technology for most good, but then Qualcomm was per invite wireless reach, so we had to pitch as well. So it was a mixture of both. But to their credit, though, I don't have a mandate to speak on behalf of IDF. We don't have anything with them, but I did have a meeting with them. I must say, of the VCs that I've had to pitch to, I can attest to it. At least, they listen, like they actually were engaged, trying to understand what it is you're doing. So I'll give them that. Not that I have anything with them at the moment, but just to.
But it's not done. It's not done. Yeah. This is on the first phase, and there will still be more needed for operational capital, job creations, building, getting people around the country.
But at least they listen. That's what I'm saying. I picked up the sense that at least, you're not talking to people that don't get what it is.
So, we've got just a few minutes left, and Vijay, I want us to unpack a little more some of the lessons you've learned since you were last here, or some of the maybe problems you might have flagged that have since been validated, unfortunately, again, or workarounds that you figured out that might be helpful to people who listened the last time. And if you're wondering which show we're talking about, I think it's entitled Investor Bias 2.0.
It's something, yes.
Yeah, I think it's the Investor Bias 2.0. It was featuring VJ. Go check it out. Look for it on AfricanTechRoundup.com. And then just click on actually just scroll down and you'll find it. And so, what else do you come to the table? Because TapSnap, which is your Uber for photographers concept, I'm sorry to use that term. I should actually.
By the way,
it is not an Uber for. It is your after robot for.
Thank you.
It's your after robot for photographers.
That's how you should be talking. Yes, use the local narrative.
Yeah.
But if you ever have a problem with Uber, using Uberizing, and sometimes some people get, don't use that word again. It's rather use the word marketplace. You're a marketplace, or use the word you're on demand, meaning you're a taxi on demand, or you're a photography on demand.
All right. So, another workaround, which clearly worked for you. But to answer the question about, stuff you've learned or validated or unlearned or worked around since our discussion.
Well, you've got to learn that the way the startup industry has been built around the Silicon Valley model. And we're trying to impose that onto the local market, which is going to be cognizant of that. And the local investors here, the VCs, are using that model to try and impose that onto the African market, which doesn't quite work, which is predominantly why the VCs are in Cape Town. And as you know, that's the kind of business that get funded. And they're not actually solving African problems.
I can think of a mobility one that fell from the sky recently.
Yeah, they're trying to scale.
You probably know which one I'm talking about. But anyway.
Yeah, they're trying to scale and then say, can it be international? Yeah, but are we solving any local problems? Yes, it's a business problem. It's all about making money, but is it local, right? And that's why the local guys don't get the funding or the eyeballs required. Because they keep saying, if I put money in, can I get 10x growth? That's not going to happen here. 10x growth. So the Silicon Valley guys, they put in $100 million and they do expect 10x growth. You put in 10 million rands and you want 10x growth in the market here. No, that's not going to happen. right?
Yeah.
So that lesson really helped. And also you got to put that back to them and say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is what I want to get
I
to.
think they also don't realize that, businesses
So
like
true.
you guys have to also invest in building infrastructure to support the startup.
Yes.
Aside from, you know what I mean? Aside from the,
Just the
executing on a
implementation of it,
on a
yeah.
great concept.
I think Elon Musk is a great example of actually building something that people might want, but starting with one thing and then and expanding and expanding. What they want you to do is come when you already have something to go to space.
Yeah.
When you, in fact, what they'll say is, when you land on Mars, come talk to me.
Yes.
That's how.
that's
the-
Proof
too
of
late.
concept.
Yeah.
Man on Mars.
Yeah,
Man on
like-
Mars.
I mean, no,
Aye,
but
guys.
he started with PayPal,
Yeah.
and then he built a fancy electric car for the rich. Then he moved on to a middle class electric car. Eventually, that electric car is going to be
You started
available.
PayPal.
He started PayPal.
That's what I mean. Did you say PayPal at the beginning?
PayPal, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
PayPal.
Yeah.
With Peter Thiel.
Yes.
Right. Then he is going to eventually make a middle class car. That car is going to be available here eventually, and that's the whole
The
point.
Model 3.
Is that you got to start with that model. That's what you got to learn and unlearn.
Yeah,
as
but
well.
Elon Musk doesn't look like you at all or sound like you.
No,
Obakeng.
that's
so-
why he speaks to that crowd.
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need the Elon Musk of South Africa.
Because there's
Who-
that too, right?
right.
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of
Let's
that.
just
We
be
need the
fair.
local. We need the local. Who's the guy who's saying, this is my vision, but what do I start with? And how do you articulate that and say, I want to reach here, but I want you to help me build this first. In photography, for example, I built TapSnap. The bigger vision is something else, actually, right?
Are you allowed to say?
Of course, it's all about freedom and, having, how can I put it? How can I articulate it? It is unified travel, Let me
Nice.
just say that.
Unified travel.
So that people anywhere in the world can enjoy an experience hassle-free, right?
Right.
But we're starting off with photographies and making it easy for you to book it.
Look out, Airbnb.
Yeah, exactly.
DJ's coming.
VJ's coming.
He's on his way.
It's on its way. So listen, guys, I mean, we're out of time, and thank you so
No
much for
worries.
being here.
Pleasure.
This catch has been awesome.
Yeah.
You, sir, are now officially a friend of the show. But
Thank you very much.
we're keeping an eye on you.
Thank you.
We like the trends that you're a part of, and we don't think they're gimmicky at all. We see you over there trying to push the whole public-private partnership, trying to do very difficult things that we know very well-heeled political entities, corporate entities, we just rather couldn't be bothered to do. We see you trying to take that on. We see you trying to improve things for our people. We see you trying to convince them that you're on their side. That's all tough stuff. And it's really nice to see that sort of, entrepreneurial pedigree come through these doors. There's a lot to like, and we wish you well. VJ, as always, 2 out of 2, my guy. So since you were here, I'm not saying the show helped at all. Okay, I'm not going to take any credit. But he's been, both his startups have been funded since he was on the show, folks. So I don't know what that means.
It means we gotta come here.
You gotta
I need
come
more
here.
invites,
You need more invites.
Exactly.
Okay. But no, thanks, guys. Before I say goodbye to our listeners, once again, a big thank you to Afrobytes Tech Conference 2018 for sponsoring this particular episode of the African Tech Roundup podcast. Afrobytes Tech Conference 2018 is Europe's preeminent Africa-focused tech event. It is unmissable, folks. It goes down in Paris on June the 7th and the 8th, 2018. Once again, we're really honored to be media partners for the event, partnering with the Afrobytes team to bring you the very finest opportunities to connect with an incredible cross-section of African talent and some of the most prolific actors within our emerging tech and innovation scene. Game-changing insights guaranteed. The event will be hosted at MIDEF in the heart of Paris. Listen, to find out more, head over to afrobytes.com and get a sense of what you missed out on last year and a sense of what you better not miss out on this year. Super early bird bookings are open right now. And by the way, again, look out for that, for the video content we're going to start to release in the lead up to Afrobytes Tech Conference. We cannot wait to share some of the exclusive insights we gleaned on video. We'll give you all the heads up you need in the coming weeks. In the meantime, though, thanks again to Afrobytes. Check them out at afrobytes.com. So, folks, that's it this week. VJ, because you're co-host, help me thank our guest here today. Your co-host
I want to
today.
thank After Robot. I've got it right finally.
Yes.
I'm going to thank After Robot for being here.
It's Obakeng,
Obakeng,
Morapeli,
because I know
Matlhoko.
because he got it wrong. I'm not going to say it.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
No, we got to get the name out though.
I would just ask for something. You know, entrepreneurship also, it's like it's also a lonely kind of space. So it's nice having a community of people that kind of get that. You know, you're not just crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll be coming around a lot more,
Dudes.
And I'll just follow up on that conference. It sounds killer.
You need to be there.
I'm gonna make sure that I
Yeah, and we're going to have you back, no doubt. Obakeng,
Nah,
Matlhoko, look out for the man and his team at After Robot. And of course, a big thank you to my co-hosts for the day, TapSnap founder and CEO Vijay Vijendranath. Thank you so much for being here, bro.
Only a pleasure, and thank you, my man. You're going to tell me more about your stuff. And is it correct that you're giving away a free taxi after this?
No.
You get a taxi. You get a taxi. Everyone get a taxi. No.
There's a lady in the States who does that.
Oprah Winfrey? Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey. No. Fake news, folks. Scratch from the record. Listen, Africa, thank you for listening. In the meantime, do take care.